You're listening to Heroes in the Moment.
What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
Today, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Bro, we about to get this.
We're about to go in hard. We're about to review this movie for you guys, give our honest opinions. And so for right off the bat, spoiler warning, because we're going to go into heavy spoilers for the movie.
True.
So if you've not seen the movie, what are you doing here?
What are you
Go
doing?
away.
It came out Thursday night, you know?
But then again, download it and then come back.
Facts. Download it, come back, shuffle your way on over.
We would appreciate it very
to the
much.
theater. Watch it. Listen.
All right. So initial reactions right off the bat, I'll start us off. So after walking out of this movie, in my mind, I was like, okay, that was a good movie. However, I was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was exactly my reaction too. I walked out of the theater disappointed, I guess would be the one word.
Right.
Upon the first watch, I was like, all right, that wasn't a great movie. It wasn't, the worst movie Marvel has made, but at the same time, I guess maybe my expectations were too high.
Right. And I feel like that's the problem with a lot of people who went into this movie. Their expectations were high. They expected every single cameo in the world.
Yeah.
And they expected it to be more so fan service than it was. And I feel like, the majority of that is our fault anyway. So I can't really blame the movie for that.
Yeah.
And for being disappointed in that aspect. But I was also disappointed with just a lot of the features that were in the movie in itself. That we'll go in more so in the cons, but just initial reactions. It was just disappointing, and I was expecting going in that this movie would be like top 5 MCU, and it wasn't. So that's unfortunate.
And I know people we're calling it like groundbreaking for the MCU as far as the multiverse goes, but it really wasn't.
It felt more like a glimpse into what could happen instead of about it, if that makes sense.
I agree, and they definitely had so much more potential. They had so much potential with this film. And it didn't just live up to it.
And the weird thing with this is I'm seeing, from different reviews, I'm seeing from TikTok, I'm seeing from Instagram, I'm seeing fans are really, really divided over this movie, which is actually really weird to me. Because usually, for Marvel movies anyway, there's a consensus, right? Most fans are like, this is a great movie, this is not a good movie.
Yeah.
For this one, I'm seeing like complete division. I'm seeing 50-50. I've not seen it overwhelmingly people not like it. I'm not seeing overwhelmingly people like it. I'm seeing people who absolutely love it and will defend it with their life, and I'm seeing people who don't like it and thought it was disappointing. It's really, really weird.
Either I see a 5 out of 5, love this movie, or I see just mid.
Exactly. I see Multiverse of Mid or amazing movie or like amazing movie, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. That's what's really weird about this. I'm more in the middle. I don't think it was mid, but I also don't think that it was like amazingly the best groundbreaking MCU project ever.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think it's slightly above mid,
I think it is. And I do think personally, and we had this conversation, but we'll go into it here, is I really do think this was one of Marvel's most ambitious projects. I really do. I think it was very ambitious. So? I do.
To be honest, this might come as a surprise. I think the first one in a way was more ambitious. With first of all, the CGI was better.
Right.
We got to explore magic in a way we had never had in the MCU. We knew about the multiverse from What If, so I feel like we didn't get like too much like thrown in our faces. That was new in this movie. I feel like most of the stuff had been teased and like we've been. We've seen before, like in Loki too. Whereas the first Doctor Strange, I feel like for at the time was like pretty groundbreaking for the MCU.
Correct. Well, I can see that argument and I can see that standpoint as well. But I really do think this was super ambitious because of the fact that certain things that happened in this movie we've never seen before in an MCU film. Particularly, this by far is 100% the darkest MCU film by far.
I'd say so.
It is definitely the darkest.
Yeah, it definitely shows more. But like, kind of what triggers me. I do like horror films. I like scary movies, and I'm seeing a lot of MCU fans like, oh, dude, it's a horror. Brother, this is not a horror movie.
No.
It's a Marvel movie with some really cool like horror elements, some moments.
Correct.
But in itself, it's not a horror movie.
That was what I was saying.
So don't call it that.
Like, I do not like horror movies. I'm not a big fan of them. I don't watch them. And somebody was like to me, like, dude, that movie was scary, dude. That was a horror movie. And I'm like, my guy, that was not a horror movie.
Talking about like 2 scenes.
I know there was like 2 jump scares, a couple of scenes that were creepy and had that horror element. And yes, it had those horror vibes, but it wasn't a horror movie.
Yeah.
It was a fantasy action adventure. So that was just super weird to me. But I do like the fact that it showed us how dark Marvel's willing to go, and they went pretty dark.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of them.
Yeah, I know. I was like, okay, Raimi.
That is something I definitely appreciate them doing in this movie. But like we said, there was a lot we were expecting that it did not do. So we'll go into that in the more pros and cons. But first, before we get into pros and cons, we have to do what we talked about first, and arguably one of the most important parts of the movie, the characters, right? So first off, I'll let you start, Nathan. We got to start with the main character, of course, Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange. I can't lie. I almost liked his performance in some of the other movies better. I feel like not in the bad way, but a lot of the attention was obviously diverted away from him.
Correct.
Obviously to Wanda and then to America, which they both, I felt like, killed their roles.
He felt more, I mean, yes, he was the center point of this movie. However, he felt more like a supporting role as to the main character.
And it wasn't in a sense like Civil War with Captain America, right? Because you had like a large assembly of heroes. With here, there's like, you know, a couple with him. As far as his acting goes, dude, Benedict Cumberbatch, he absolutely killed it.
Right. And some of it came down to the writing around him. Some of the stuff was cheesy. Like the whole aspect of the film is Doctor Strange happy? And I thought that was cool and interesting, a good concept. But the way they forced it so hard later in the movie
and then with
just
Wong,
seemed odd. You know what I'm saying? At first, when the one dude asked, "Are you happy?" Like that makes sense. Like, okay, interesting enough. When Christine asked him, is like, "Tell me, Stephen, are you truly happy?" Like I was like, "Ooh, that that gave me some more, gave him some development."
Yeah.
But then later, when he looked at Wong, he was like, "Are you happy?" Like what? Like where did that come from?
Like, he's just trying to be an old wise mentor, I guess, to the Sorcerer Supreme.
I didn't really necessarily like that.
Yeah, and then I did like the whole theme about sacrifice, because constantly throughout the MCU, we've seen Stephen Strange always make the decision for the greater good, and sometimes that means sacrificing whoever has to die.
And I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, and in this film, in the very beginning, it showed that Stephen Strange like equates like I guess like winning or whatever, like with a sacrifice having to be made. And obviously, as you see in the beginning, it didn't work. Later, he figures out, all right, there doesn't always have to be a sacrifice made.
The only
for us to win.
Unfortunate part of this movie was the fact that, like, it dives deep into Doctor Strange's sacrifices, what he had to do in Infinity War and Endgame. It dives deep into that, and it shows that, and which is really cool.
Yeah.
But how can they do that without mentioning Tony Stark? Because it just felt weird at the fact that, I feel like he was feeling in his chest, like, watching this movie, I felt like he was thinking, like, maybe I should have been the one to die instead of, Iron Man.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking he would be thinking about, but they never really mentioned that.
What was his sacrifice? Just giving up. He was giving up the time zone, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
He could have easily
Tony
been
Stark
the one
had
to do
the
it.
greater sacrifice.
Exactly.
He definitely probably feels some guilt still over that.
I'm sure he does. I just feel like they should have mentioned that, especially later once we see the statue of Doctor Strange in a different universe, and we see him. He dedicated his life to Thanos. We later find out that wasn't true, but I feel like in that sense, he felt in that sense like it could have been him instead.
Yeah.
And they never really touched that. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
I feel like
that would have been a cool direction to go.
I think they should have done that more so than just him being upset about, some decisions that he made at the time.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
I think that would have been better. But overall, I did enjoy him in this movie. The magic was definitely the coolest we've ever seen him do in any MCU project at all. It was so amazing. And I just love seeing, him as a fully fledged wizard, more so because, of course, in the original Doctor Strange, he was learning. It was his origin story.
Yeah.
And then in later movies, he's a side character. He's not really, involved in it. So in this, to really explore his magic and really explore his ability, I really enjoyed.
See, and that's the thing. To be honest, I think it should have shown more. Exactly like you said, the first one's about him learning his powers. Endgame and Infinity War, like he's a side character, and obviously he's nerfed so everyone else, can have their shot at Thanos. But I feel like this movie should have had more magic, and I guess more scenes specifically with him and Wanda. I feel like once in the movie, like goes all out with his magic. He's always holding back.
I would have liked to have seen, yes, there was in a weird way, but I would have liked to have seen an all-out battle between the two.
Also, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it never really happened.
If there ever was a moment to truly showcase Doctor Strange's power, besides making a couple spells to stop some monsters or
all his spells in this movie were defensive.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. I wanted to see more offensive. Right.
I can't lie. Honestly, even looking at this movie, my favorite still magic scene with him is when he's fighting Thanos in Infinity War.
It was great.
I really thought that was better because he's truly on the offensive. He's going against a Titan, bro.
I do think the one scene that I really enjoyed is when he dream walked into his dead body on the other Earth and used the power of the evil beings as his cape,
as his spears.
That was awesome.
That was super
cool.
dope. But I guess maybe it didn't hit the same because the body he was using wasn't his actual body.
Yeah,
it was
I understand
dead.
that. But that scene itself was cool.
Yeah, for sure.
That's probably the most powerful we've seen him. But still, that was really cool. And I agree with what you're saying. I
Yeah.
would have liked to have seen him more aggressive and more offensive. I would have rather him, been more of a head runner to fight instead of, kind of just being really super defensive.
Especially at Comertage. That would have been when he flies up.
Right.
They should have had an epic
They
battle.
should have had an epic
Yes,
battle. I agree.
for real.
I agree. They really,
Instead
really
he's
should
retreating the whole time.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But,
Which, from this movie, we can understand why he did.
brother, the whole movie is just him getting clapped.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. So, do you have anything else to say about Doctor Strange before we move on from him? I believe that was pretty good for him.
I don't, but just overall, they do a really good job developing his character. Like you said, with the whole theme with his relationship with Christine and sacrifices, because it shows both in the very beginning and then shows both at the very end and how it resolves. So, Sam Raimi did a good job with that.
I agree. All right. Next up, we have to talk about, in my opinion, the best part of the movie, the MVP, the Scarlet Witch, Wanda.
Facts.
Right. She was by far the best part of this movie. Absolutely carried this movie. If she wasn't in it, this movie would have been terrible. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't even know who else they would have used for the villain to make it that
I don't know, but man, was she like... I didn't think, when I was thinking initially, I was like, okay, she's going to be the villain of this movie. That was our theories. That was what we were thinking all along. But we didn't know that they would go that hard. And they went that hard.
Yeah.
Like, she was a villain.
Yeah.
And she was a darn good one at that.
She is so powerful.
She is so good.
She's so good.
Like, she was menacing too. Like, you go from WandaVision, from absolutely loving her to bringing her in this and being afraid of her. Like, that was cool. That was a cool transition. And her character development in this movie was also very, very good. And they did a really, really good job with her all around. And Elizabeth Olsen, of course, hats off to her for her acting.
Shout out.
She was very, very talented as well. And I just enjoyed her.
I guess the only thing I was confused about, I don't know. I feel like she switches rather fast.
Yeah, that was my only part.
From being the huge big bad villain, willing to do whatever it takes to save her kids, right? Which Doctor Strange points out that's the same justification our enemies use. So she knows it too. But in the very end, after seeing, I won't talk about it yet, but like she switches instantly back to being good, and then does all the things.
I don't actually. The more I think about that, the more I think they did a good job.
I don't know.
Because when I think about it, this is what I think about. The reason that she ended up doing it is from seeing her kids' fear of her.
Yeah.
And that made total sense for her to be like, okay, this doesn't need to happen. That change makes total sense to me. Because she was seeing the fear in her kids' eyes. She was looking menacing. She was looking scary. She's about to kill their mother, their true mother from a different universe, and take them as her own. But they were so afraid of her. They were like, you're not my mom. All this stuff, and that put a really that hurt her. That was like the eye-opening moment for her. And the only part that I had a comment earlier with her around her is the fact that I felt they made her too evil right off the gate. But then again, after thinking more about it, we know at the end credit scene of WandaVision, we see her with the Darkhold and studying it and growing more to try to find her kids through the multiverse. And now seeing it here, we know that Wanda herself isn't necessarily the bad guy. It was the Darkhold that was corrupting her that made her the bad guy, if that makes sense.
I guess the Darkhold, in that sense, was magnifying her greatest, desires, which was kids, and which we see throughout the movie. She was willing to do whatever for.
And I genuinely
she kills a ton of people to try to get her kids.
People.
And it's just weird because she just says, I'm not a monster. Like, she says that 4 different times in the movie. It's like, okay, we get it. You're saying you're not a monster. You just want your kids, but you're murking these. And she was
essentially a monster for what she did. And a lot of people are like, oh, she's irredeemable for this. She was. And then other people were like, oh, I love her. I was actually cheering for her. And I was like, dang.
Brother, you need to get yourself checked out.
That's a bit much. But a lot of people are like, she's irredeemable. She said some terrible stuff. And yes, she did some terrible stuff. But I don't think she's irredeemable. I really don't. Because those are the same people that justify Loki and say, oh, he's good now. Loki killed a lot of people too.
Yeah, he
my
killed
friends.
over 100 people in
he
2
did.
days.
He killed over 100 people in 2 days. He stole a man's eye out of his head.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of evil things. And a lot of people are like, oh, he was under the influence of the Mind Stone. Well, and Thor 1, he wasn't. Thor the Dark World, he wasn't. He still did some pretty terrible things.
Yeah.
So, and then now he's good now. And saying that is really not, because Wanda, she still has those factors and she is redeemable. I really do believe that, because of the fact of all her trauma she's went through. She just wanted her kids. Yes, she did some terrible things that she never should have done for that goal. And eventually though, she sees the, error of her ways and changes that. And I think that's a really good story, if I'm being honest.
It makes me more excited to see what they do in the future with Doctor Strange. Because now we got to see later in the end, him use the same book. Obviously not to the same extent as Wanda did, because she spent forever studying it.
Right.
But, knowing that it can do that to you, what could it do to Strange?
Exactly. But the book's gone now. But he did get a glimpse of it within him.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that later on. But I do think Scarlet Witch absolutely carried this movie, and this was the first time we ever seen her be the Scarlet Witch,
Yeah.
which was super cool as well. And I do love how they're still, she was a villain in this movie, but she's still an anti-hero, in a way. She went from a hero to being a villain, and then now she's more of an anti-hero, which I love. And I think they did a really good job with. And I really do think she carried the movie. I loved everything
She was amazing.
she
She
in.
was very menacing.
She was. And I would go to say, like, from this, and she was the villain of this movie. She's probably top 5 MCU villain, to be
What?
honest.
You think she's top 5 from
I do
this?
think she probably is.
Well,
for
I
the way they
can't.
did it.
I have a hard time saying like she's the villain, like almost like you said,
Right.
because just of the manipulation. Then like we know like she's actually good.
Right. It's a hard time to say, but the fact that she was the main villain of this movie makes it to where she she is considered one for a movie. So. And I do think that they crushed her character, and I really enjoyed her role in this movie.
I especially really enjoy the scenes with her other self,
Right.
like seeing the different like interactions, kind of like the Moon Knight scenario.
Right. And I was thinking going in, I didn't think that they would have another version of Wanda. I really didn't. I thought she would be the one being, but the way they did it, I think they did a really good job with. So I'm okay with it.
I did, yeah,
They did a good job. All right, next up, we have to talk about our brand new character, and that being America Chavez. What do you think about her?
I thought she was pretty solid in this film. I don't know if she's acted too much before. I know
I
she's
don't
only
think
like
so.
16.
Yeah, she's young.
But I feel like what her role was supposed to be, she was that like a kind of emotionally like unavailable kid trying to learn her powers, trying to live on her own with the tragedy that's happened in her past. Slowly meets mentors, becomes friends. Like it's stereotypical, but
I feel like it's very similar to Spider-Man's story in a way. I do think it's very similar to Spider-Man. They're kind of building up this new character, this new like relationship with we had Spider-Man and Iron Man previously,
like
now
with
the
her
America Chavez,
and
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, especially with her learning magic at the end. I assume they spend a lot of time together.
I'm sure they would. To be honest, I really did not really care for her role too much. I wasn't a huge fan of America Chavez. I thought certain stuff, her powers were awesome. I loved her powers. I thought they were great. But the instant that she was like, oh, I can do my powers now, like that didn't make sense to me. Like, she got more confidence, but to be able to just instantly do your powers and essentially master them just for getting confidence.
Yeah, and then you're just beating the crap out of the most powerful person.
Exactly.
That was that just plays in. It was extremely cheesy.
That was
she's just punching the crap, and then she tries to punch her into hell. Then she punches her into the reality. It's just I don't know, but I mean that was like one of the main points of the film is when the Book of Ashanti is being destroyed. Strange, she's like her symbol in the book, and you realize she has to be the one. Which just seems weird to me. Like in a Doctor Strange movie, one of your side characters is the key piece to defeating
exactly
your prodigy, like your villain.
Right. I think it would have been cooler
if he killed her, took her powers, and then
no, not necessarily because that would just eliminate her character. But I think it'd be cool to see more of a relationship between Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, and seeing Doctor Strange be more of a mentor to her. I thought that'd been cooler.
Yeah.
Yes, she still could have been the villain, but at the same time, I would have liked to have seen that interaction. And when I originally heard that Elizabeth Olsen was going to be in this movie, I originally didn't think she would be the villain. I originally thought that would be it. Them two would be working together, and Doctor Strange would be helping her with her powers. But no, she was the villain, which was also cool. But with America Chavez, I just wasn't necessarily a huge fan of her. The acting, I think the girl who acted, Xochitl Gomez, I think her name was. Yeah. I think she did a good job. I do think so. I think she was a pretty good actress. But the only things with her is I just really did not connect to her character at all. In this movie, if she would have died, I would have been like, okay, and then I mean, if she would have been, and I feel like they're trying to set her up to be a bigger role in the future of the MCU, but I don't think that they did justice to what she could have been. And I'm not gonna lie, like she's an interesting character. I just don't think that they did her justice the way they should have done her. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Do you think they should have maybe waited to initially introduce her like in a show, maybe lead up to this?
I don't think so. I don't. But I do know that they originally had her to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. But if you think about it, originally Doctor Strange was supposed to take place before Spider-Man No Way Home. So I think she was always supposed to be introduced in Multiverse of Madness. But, a lot of COVID issues, happened to all of these movies and affected a lot of these things. So I can't complain too much about some of this stuff, but I don't know. I think they introduced her well. Her introduction wasn't my problem. It was just the way they had her character, be the focal point of this movie.
Exactly. Especially like you said earlier, when it's about Doctor Strange and we're seeing him like right now at the peak of his powers.
Right.
And in turn, he's not even the one to defeat Wanda. And like the whole movie is just like his relationship with her, really.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not necessary, and it's not even like a situation like in a sequel. Say like Winter Soldier with Cap and Bucky. Like that movie is about them too, but like Bucky's a well-established character, and they wrote him in very well. Like that's a really good story. This wasn't like near on that level,
right? And that's the thing, though, also with this movie that I'm thinking about is like Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and America Chavez was what this movie is about.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of other characters in it, but those three like were just such the big point of the movie. All the other characters were so overshadowed because of them three.
Facts.
If that makes sense.
They didn't show any of the wizards barely. Wong had, some decent screen time.
Right. But even then, like, his role could have been like non-existent,
Exactly.
Like every single role that happened in this movie, except for them three, could have been non-existent, and it would have been the same movie pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a couple other things that, happened that, would have, lessened stuff. But at the same time, it's just like those three feel like took too much away from other characters.
Yeah, and then they do throw in, the new characters that people are excited to see.
Right.
And they don't spend any time on them either.
No,
they just go right back to the characters.
Which we know that they will in the future, which is super awesome to know. But at the same time, it's just like I would have liked it to have been more of a branched out instead of them three just being like the everything that this movie revolves around.
Yeah.
I would have liked
Dude, I completely agree. It focuses so heavily on those three characters.
Right.
And like it leaves a lot lacking.
It
like I said,
does.
with the side characters who
It
could
does.
have contributed a lot more.
Right. All right. So that's American Chavez. Do you have anything else to add on her?
Dude, I really don't.
All right. Next up, we have to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Wong.
Wong. Freaking goat, dude.
I love Wong.
Dude, I love him too. And I wish we could have gotten to see more of him.
Exactly.
But like, what is his purpose in the film? To
His
establish
purpose was to-
he's a sorcerer supreme.
He's Sorcerer Supreme. He
Show up in the
leads
beginning.
Wanda to her temple of the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
For the Darkhold.
And then,
that's
but
pretty much it.
I'll say maybe a little something controversial. And I thought this was going to happen, but it didn't. But I feel like Wong should have died in this movie.
I agree.
It would imagine the stakes, bro. Imagine if Wong had died, how angered Doctor Strange would have felt. And plus,
Exactly.
imagine that too for her redemption story.
Right.
Yeah. How can you get over like killing another Avenger? Like that would have been like a really cool like process to see.
Right.
But it just like there's no like consequences. Like
I agree.
None of the people we love like died or even
Truly
like
died.
got hurt that bad.
Right.
Like
I
no
agree.
name sorcerers got obliterated. But
Right. I completely agree. I mean, initially, I love Wong as a character. He is great. But like my thing is, sure, he's a side character to Doctor Strange, but where does he fit in the future of the MCU?
Yeah.
In my mind, Doctor Strange is the Sorcerer Supreme. He should have became the Sorcerer Supreme once again in this movie. And of course, I love Wong, and I think he's a great character, but I feel like the movie would have really improved if Scarlet Witch would have killed Wong. And then
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, in that anger, would have had a battle with Wanda because of that.
yes, bro.
It would have
I've been
improved.
goated.
It would have been great. And then, of course, it'd been a much more detailed battle because Doctor Strange has that anger
that
behind him.
personal connection, like
Right.
his best buddy.
And I feel like, he'd be, Sorcerer Supreme once again. Wong's death would impact this movie and other movies to come. And it would just make total sense. And I feel like they've come as far as they can with Wong's character. And
like
because
where else can you go?
Exactly. And I love Wong. I really do. And he's a great actor. The guy who plays him, I think, is BD Wong, right?
Yeah.
And
Benedict
I
Wong,
love
yeah.
that. But, or Benedict, is it Benedict
I think
Wong?
it's Benedict.
Benedict
I actually
Wong.
don't know how.
I think it's Benedict Wong.
I've never really said it.
Anyway.
Now that I realize, I just call
But
him Wong.
I love Wong. I think they did a good job, but I really think the movie would have benefited more so by his
Yeah,
death. I really do.
I just like I said, I just don't want to see Doctor Strange as the secondary option as a second character in Kamar-Taj.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
He needs to be the main
Like,
one.
he needs to be one calling the shots.
Right,
You know?
Exactly. And the fact
It's
the
just-
whole thing is like it's courtesy to bow to the Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah, like that was funny, but at the same time, like, Doctor Strange was the Sorcerer Supreme and he should have been the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. It just hurts that,
Like I said, Juan did well for the time he had and for the limited role he had. But like I said, it would have added so much more. The stakes would have been so much higher if Wong had died.
I agree. And I think it would have really improved the movie. I really do, because it gave the audience that emotional stake.
Yep.
It'd give the audience the want for Doctor Strange to beat Wanda more, and it really would have impacted the movie a lot deeper.
And it would have like tugged at your emotions too. 'Cause
Exactly.
I can't really think through the movie and be like, wow, that made me like feel something. Like
Right.
I just felt like I was just there watching it. But that
Exactly.
would have like really pulled me in, dude.
Right. And I completely agree.
She had every chance to, by
Right.
the way. Every chance. She
Every
had him
chance.
tied up with a Darkhold. In the end, when she had him, at the one temple, like she
Right.
could have killed him then, but she just falls off the cliff and somehow survives. Like,
I know. And like even the falling off the cliff, like I knew he wasn't
why are you
dead
throwing him off
then,
the
but,
cliff?
like,
Just rip him apart right there.
Exactly.
You know?
But of
Sacrifice.
course, a lot of people may be hating on us right now for saying Wong should have died. But
Yeah,
I
we're
feel like-
not Wong haters. We're
no,
not.
no,
I
not
love
at all.
Wong.
We love him, but
And
it just would have impacted the movie more.
They should have and just like brought in a multiverse version of him, just as like a sorcerer, like to companion Doctor Strange.
They
maybe.
could have, but that would just kind of retcon his death, and
But like people would be like, "Oh, we want Wong back." But at
Right.
the same time, Strange got to be Sorcerer Supreme, and I hope
Exactly.
that make that change soon.
Right, I do. All right, next up, we got to talk about the next big character, which is Christine Palmer.
Bro.
I actually really liked her role.
She killed it.
Like she was Rachel McAdams, man. She killed it. Like I loved her.
How many different versions of her in this film?
I think
Was
just
it
two.
two. Her
just
night
two.
nurse version, then
Her night nurse, and
616
then
version.
her regular version from the normal universe. Which the one from the normal universe, I love how they concluded that story.
Yeah,
And then expanded more upon it with Doctor Strange in this variant. But the night nurse version of her was awesome.
that was so.
Her
cool.
character was great. Was very well written. I think they did a good job, and her variant was the main variant of this movie. And she also gave a lot of stuff. Like she let us know that the main Marvel universe is the Earth 616 from the comics.
Yeah.
It is Earth 616. That was really cool.
The confirmation was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. I was really cheery. Nobody really knew what that was going on in my theater, but at that
my
moment I was
theater
like, "Hey!"
so lame."
Yeah,
Even the second time,
right.
I went 2 times. Second time I went, no one reacted, even to
So
the
dumb.
cameos.
So dumb.
People just sat there and went,
I had a couple casts, but that was it. That was it. It was disappointing.
lame.
Disappointing.
Y'all ain't true fans.
Not true. It was disappointing.
But
Anyway,
nah, dude, she killed it, and
She
I
was.
loved getting to see those tiebacks from the first Doctor Strange movie. Because apart from that, it really didn't feel like a sequel to it, right? But
Yeah.
it did. It's the whole dude. The wedding scene might have been like, to be honest, the most emotional scene because he's Strange having to face his guilt, his regret that he wasn't able to make it work with her,
Right.
And their talk at the bar, dude, that kind of went hard. I can't even lie.
Right. I mean, she did such a great job, and the whole fact, like that the night nurse version was falling back in love with him too, but they still concluded that
know.
story. I don't think Rachel McAdams will come back. I really think this is it. I do think this is it for her. Poor Rachel McAdams.
Bro,
I don't think she'll come back, but I did
Oh.
love that what they did with her. Her character was great, and the name drop of 616, and also the name drop of something else that was super, super awesome.
Yeah.
That not a lot of people I know did not catch, but I catched it
Yeah,
right
you're
off the
like,
bat.
well, what's that?
And this to me was confirmation of a certain character, and that was that she name dropped Baxter Foundation. And if you don't know what that is, I'll tell you in a few minutes when I get to that character.
Facts.
But she name dropped the Baxter Foundation. Instantly in my head, I was like, oh, we're getting this person.
Yeah.
So I was hyped. for
I
that.
actually didn't hear it the first time through.
Oh, did you not?
I didn't. I missed it.
I caught it, and I was like, hey. Anyway, but she was great in this movie. Really added a lot, and I enjoyed her. And that was pretty much
Shout
it for
out.
Christine.
She's one of the better parts.
She was. All right, next up, we got to talk about Mordo. What do you think about him?
Bro, they wasted him.
I agree.
Also, why was he in the movie?
Yeah,
Why?
it was weird. It was weird.
I felt like they should have pulled the actual 616 variant from there because he had like an actual. He had revenge. He had purpose like,
Right.
on his mind.
I did hear that in the original plans for this movie, that the original Mordo was supposed to be in this movie, but early on was supposed to get killed by Wanda, which would have gave closure to that character. And
well, they should have done that because his character still exists
It
in the
still
616
exists in
universe.
616.
And is it too late to go back and hit that?
I know.
Like probably because he's not a major threat.
Right. And in this, of course, he was, the next Sorcerer Supreme in this universe after Doctor Strange. And he wasn't bad necessarily in this universe, but you can see, he wasn't that good either. Wasn't
Yeah.
that good of a dude. And I just think he was, there's a lot of other characters I feel like they could have filled his position with in the Illuminati than him.
Exactly. He was just there, to be honest. And he didn't even die, did he?
No, he didn't. He
He
survived.
didn't die. Yeah, like, so what's the point? I mean, I can understand if they had him, like, as a place filler, if, a
Right.
Tony Stark variant or, their version of Doctor Strange. But
Yeah.
instead, it's like, here's Mordo. He's not bad, but, like, he still kind of hates Strange. But
Right.
there's actually, like, this little tiny plot going on that he's actually bad. But he
Right.
didn't add anything to the movie.
No, he
Like,
didn't.
he didn't, and I did not enjoy like his character. I really didn't.
I agree. Like he was just there, and of course, Doctor Strange played on his ego to escape, which I think that part was kind of stupid too.
It was cheesy,
Yeah,
dude.
right,
Like,
right.
brother, you're the Sorcerer Supreme in this world, and you get baited into a fight by a couple words
Exactly.
while your building is under attack
Mhm.
by a witch. Like,
And he's so blinded that he thinks that Doctor Strange is the villain, even though right in front of his eyes is the villain. That was just stupid. I did not really particularly like him and the writing surrounding him in this movie.
it was bad. It was bad.
But the one thing that he did well and that I enjoyed was his introduction of the Illuminati. which definitely for me was one of my favorite parts of the movie,
Facts.
which I loved.
It was
And
goated.
from the Illuminati, we get 5 specific cameos
5.
that were really cool. Some of them were better than others, of course, but we'll get to that later. But first off, we have to talk about, we'll just go through them. First, we have to talk about probably the most surprising and probably a great one, that being the appearance of Mr. Fantastic. But not only the appearance of Mr. Fantastic, the fact that he's played by John Krasinski.
Yeah,
That was my favorite part
bro.
of this movie.
They gave us what we wanted.
They literally
listened to us.
They listened. They gave us what we wanted, and this to me confirms that he's got to be the Mr. Fantastic in our universe.
And I loved how they introduced him, like bringing him through the portal rather than
Right.
just like him sitting there,
Right.
the smartest man. Like that was so cool,
So
dude.
cool, and John Krasinski played him so well that I can already tell he's gonna be one of my favorite characters when he's in the movies.
Yeah.
I can already tell. I love it so much, and he did such a fantastic job. My heart pounded and skipped a beat when I saw him.
Fantastic job.
I loved him. My theater went. I was expecting more like, yeah, but
no claps in mine. I had a couple.
yeah,
That was about it.
that was about it. I was about to scream, but I held it back because everybody else was
Yeah,
lame.
you can't just like scream.
I know.
Screaming.
I was like, ah! I couldn't do that. Unfortunate. But anyway, of course, John Krasinski playing him all but confirms that he will be playing him, hopefully, in the Fantastic Four movie coming later. And I hope, because of course we know John Watts stepped out, I hope that he is both in front and behind the camera,
Ooh.
directing and
Quiet
starring.
Place vibes right there
For sure.
If
And I
y'all see
think he'll
those
kill it.
movies go crazy.
I think he would do a
Imagine
great
that
job.
they give him the same like creative control that they did with Watiti, like,
Right.
and saw how good like Ragnarok and probably the next
Right.
Thor movie will be.
I think it'd be fantastic.
Let him take
Give
a spin on it.
Let him be the director. Let him be the main actor. And who knows, because he's there, Emily Blunt might just come in and be the Invisible Woman.
Oh,
I think it'd be great. I think that would be
you get me out
fantastic.
now.
And of course, we'll get some more, Human Torch thing. Who knows? But I just love the fact that we get John Krasinski and he plays him so well. And I love the fact, like, it was so great. And I absolutely loved
Yeah.
seeing him. It was my favorite part.
It was one of the better parts.
It
of the movie,
was.
for
It
sure.
was for sure.
I went
great.
crazy.
Next up was I did not expect this character at all in this movie. I did not think he'd appear. Of course, when back in our trailer review, we said maybe for this character, but now it was confirmed, and I was shocked that they actually did it with him, that being Black Bolt.
I was surprised too. I know they brought him back from the Inhuman. Was it a series?
Yeah, they did.
See, I haven't seen it.
Don't.
I know it's bad, but to be honest, I can't lie. I kind of enjoyed
I did.
his character.
I think he's cool.
Like really.
I really did. I think he's cool. I don't know if he'll ever show up in an MCU project again. If I'm being honest, he could. Very well could. I hope he does. I hope they get the Inhumans what they deserve in the MCU. Maybe a movie, a show,
Facts.
whatever, and get
Facts.
it better. Because originally it was supposed to be a movie in the MCU.
Yeah, it was slated like in phase 3.
It
wasn't
was.
it?
It was supposed to be in
Or, like,
phase 3, and they were
2015.
supposed to be pretty involved. But they completely cut that. But I think it'd be cool to go back and have them return in the MCU with, Black Bolt, the main character, bring in Medusa, bring in Lockjaw, bring in all these characters. I think it'd be super cool. And of course, you get the comic accurate costume of Black Bolt,
Yeah.
which was super awesome.
He looked really good.
And his powers are super cool. And I was glad. I feel like they displayed his powers probably the best out of the characters that we got.
Sorry.
I know that was cool. I love that part. That was really cool. And then
There's just something so fascinating about someone holding back so much power. Like I guess in Bruce Banner's case, and then in his case, like
right.
I just find that really intriguing concept.
Right. I think that was really cool. So that's Black Bolt. Anything else for Black Bolt?
Shout out Black Bolt. But like
Shout
you
out
said, they do kind of showcase his
They do.
abilities a lot
I
in a
enjoyed that.
very, very limited amount of time. Because he had about like what, a minute
Yeah,
a minute
2 minutes,
30
yeah.
screen
Very,
time.
very little. So it was really cool. All right, next up we have to talk about the character that they showed in the trailers that they shouldn't have shown in the trailers, but was really awesome to see back in live action, that being Professor X.
Facts. I love getting to see him. And my theater, the first time, actually clapped for him.
Oh,
which,
did they?
Which I was surprised for.
Right.
But like we already knew he was gonna be in the film.
Right.
So when he shows up, full like regala and his
Right, his hover chair.
Yeah, his hover
I thought
chair.
it was so great.
Like,
I love seeing
I
him.
loved it, but it was kind of like dimmed by the fact that we knew it was gonna happen. Like, why
Right.
would they show that
They
to
shouldn't have
us in
showed
the
that,
trailer
period.
in a movie where they don't nearly meet the fans' expectations or the rumors that were leaked? Like, why would you take like the two most like surprising parts about the film I guess the one surprising part about the film and him, and then like spoil it. Like,
yeah, they did.
Same
The
with
trailers did
Carter,
a really
too.
bad job. The trailers were good.
And I
but the
Feige didn't like it. I know
No,
he said we
no.
showed too much, but it was awesome getting to see him. He looked old. I
He
can't
did.
lie.
He did. I
He
feel like
looked
they
good,
did a
but
great
they
job.
shouldn't have shown him in the trailer.
Yeah, I agree. They did a great job with him. I think he was cool in this movie, but I just love the fact that when he rose up, like was driving up, they played the animated series theme song in the background, which was super cool.
That's a cool
Which I
nod.
actually saw something that was, actually blew my mind. That was super cool and amazing. Was the fact that so we know the Professor X played by Patrick Stewart from the original X-Men movies.
Mhm.
This isn't him. This was not him.
Yeah.
This was the animated series Professor X
What?
in live action.
How would he?
If you think about it, the yellow chair, the music, right? Everybody's saying that was him from the actual animated series. We see another cameo who
So
came
why
from an
would-
animated series come back in live action.
Yeah.
That was him from the show.
Well, then why wouldn't they be animated then? Would they just instantly? Yeah, no, like in that sense. So if they're animated in one world,
Well, I
would
don't
they
think that's
instantly
necessarily
not
were
be?
animated in those worlds particularly. It's just when they showed them, they were animated to us.
Okay, so you're saying they're actually live? It's just
Right.
animated
Because
the
we
way
get
they're
another character
portrayed.
that, of course, came from an animated universe.
Yeah.
So we get that super cool. So I think it was the actual Professor X from the animated series, which was super cool as
You
well.
know, like you said, there's a lot of suggesting that with the music and the chair. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I guess he ain't no more.
Right. And the display of his powers was also very cool in this movie. Of course, having our first mutant, and we know we'll have a lot more to do with the X-Men, hopefully in the future in the MCU. It just made me super hyped, and I was so glad to see him return.
Yeah, facts.
glad.
We should have been given more.
We should
To
have.
be honest, there should have been an actual fight scene.
There
with him
should have
and
been.
Wanda. Initially, there were rumors it was gonna be like a little short battle between him and Wanda, just like flying around like whole mind game.
That would have been so cool.
And they kind of did him dirty.
They did. And we'll talk about that in a minute when I get through all the Illuminati. We'll go back.
But
and
we
talk
should
about
see
that.
more.
We
We
should
should
have
see
seen
more.
All right. Next up, we have somebody we already knew was going to be in this movie, that being Captain Carter.
Mommy! I mean, sorry.
Captain Carter,
Listen,
Haley Atwell.
me
returns.
and all the homies. Shout out Corey. We love Captain Carter. What can I say? She been my like day one since First Avenger.
Yeah, having her return in this new light was super cool. And of course, we know her from the What If series, which is awesome as
She
well.
got the jetpack.
She just
had
felt
the
super
shield.
different from the What If series, to be
Yeah,
honest.
she
Like,
felt really different.
she felt pretty arrogant for me. I don't know if that's
Dude, the whole Illuminati was arrogant
that's
though.
true. They were
like they're a bunch
except
of
for Professor X.
bunch of jerks is what they were.
I don't think Mr. Fantastic or Professor X was necessarily arrogant, but everybody else was. So
That's true. You're the greatest threat to this universe. As the Scarlet Witch is blowing up their building.
right. So
Wow.
I don't know, but Captain Carter, man, she was cool.
How'd
was
you feel about
cool
her?
to see her in live action. I didn't really necessarily like her that much, but oh well. I think I did hear a lot of people saying that most of their theaters booed when they saw her.
Booed.
So,
Why
yeah.
would they boo?
She's just a lame character, to be honest.
How is she lame?
She's just not that interesting.
I mean,
So it's just
oh, that hurts
and
me.
and the line that I can do this all day was so forced.
brother,
and bad.
brother. When she said that, I turned to my buddy. Who was it? It was Bryce. I turned to Bryce. And I said, "That's not your line.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not
Come
you.
up with your own line.
No, that's like I don't know what else. That'd be like a variant of Iron Man being like, "And I am Iron Man."
Exactly,
Like in the introduction, like, bro, do not. I know you're supposed to be
yeah,
the
right.
multiverse version, right? But like, don't rip off the major
Right.
lines of the major
I agree.
characters we love.
I agree.
But she's in the fight. She should have got bodied sooner. Like
She
she
should
should have.
have.
She should have been like the first to die.
She should have.
But
been.
that's all I'll say.
I completely agree, and we'll
But
go back into that.
I can't lie. I did love her costume and design.
Okay, all right. I feel like she should have been bigger because in the What If series she was like huge, like with her muscles and
Well,
stuff.
like, I don't know if they can make it with Haley Atwell.
I
just,
know,
like,
but they get a CGI'd it.
massive.
Oh well. Anyway,
know.
next up we have Captain Marvel being Maria Rambeau,
Boo.
which was cool.
I'm dead set on the fact that Marvel is trying to make us absolutely detest Captain Marvel in every universe.
I think-
like for real.
Really?
I hated this Captain Marvel more than I did Brie Larson's character.
Really? Most people are
Yes.
saying like they'd rather this Captain Marvel be the actual
Dude, this
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel was so cocky and arrogant.
It was
Still the
cocky.
best version we've seen is What
cocky.
If. But she's a jerk.
Yeah,
Like, she really
She was.
I just don't like Captain Marvel
Right.
after how they shown her.
that's fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any connection to her. I thought she was just kind of.
And her suit design was dumb.
yeah, it was just
I
kind
thought she
of.
was maybe some color, but just
I
like
think it was
all
just
white.
black.
It was just all Straight black.
Like, it was like Captain Marvel suit but black. Like,
You're not Batman.
I know.
You're not cool.
I
No
know.
one.
And plus, they kind of spoiled her too.
I clapped when she died. I was like, yeah.
All right, so
Sorry.
that's the
That was rather
Illuminati,
aggressive.
right? In the general. So now we got to talk about the Illuminati and Wanda battle real quick. I think this battle was awesome. Is one of my favorite parts of the movie. My only thing is I think it should have been a little bit longer.
Yeah, I was about to say it should have been longer. Also, it was woke in the fact that they saved the women battle for the end and they killed off all the dudes first.
Yeah.
When you consider how powerful they are.
Some of the dudes
Like,
were right.
You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Captain Marvel is the most powerful, but like
Right.
Haley Atwell and then probably should have been the first.
Yeah,
to go.
Captain Carter should have been the first to go.
Yeah,
it would have made more
looking back
sense
at
looking back. But I understand why they did it. But their deaths, all of their deaths, all 5 of their deaths were so brutal
Yeah.
that I was shocked it was PG-13 by
Yeah.
some of them deaths.
And it was extremely creative, which this is one of my absolutely favorite scenes because Raimi was just showing out on like Wanda being creative in each way with every person, like was very specific to them.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
for example, the first thing. First of all, that was another thing. John Krasinski never should have been like, "This is Bible," with just one word of his mouth.
They were saying that
Okay.
the reason that he said that, of course, it was not the best
Like a
writing. It wasn't
warning.
his fault. But I think the most of the time, the reason that he said that was he was thinking she had the power set of the Wanda in their universe,
Yeah.
and they didn't necessarily know the power set of her from the other universe.
Yeah.
So he was underestimating her. But as the smartest man in
Facts,
the
they
world,
did.
he should have underestimated her.
No, he shouldn't have. He should, especially when Strange was like, "Dude, this is an actual legitimate threat."
Right.
But like he gives away their secret weapon, instantly takes away his mouth, and his own scream blows his brain out of the back of his skull.
Which that was brutal, dude.
That was crazy.
I bet you were like,
I was like, hey!
I bet you were like, Marvel, thank you.
I was like, thank you. Like that's realistic.
Right.
Like that's cool. She's taking away
Was
like
cool.
their greatest power. She's killing them with it.
right.
Like the thing about it, she killed him with his power. She
Right.
killed Carter with her shield.
Right.
She killed
She cut Carter
Krasinski
literally in half.
with unraveled
Stretchiness,
him.
right,
'cause
unraveled
like
him.
it was cool the way she did it. She beat
She did. She beat literally
X-Men
all
at
of them
their
by
own
games.
game. At their own game.
Mhm.
How powerful do you have to be?
I
That's
know.
like 5
And
different
then
factions.
the Captain Marvel fight and the Wanda fight was super short, but I think I would have seen it. But it proved that she's more powerful than Captain Marvel, which
100%.
I love that.
And I think, smart people would have known that going
Yeah,
in.
for sure.
But to be honest, I will say, I still don't understand how Captain Marvel died. Like she had a pillar dropped on her. Like how would she not survive that?
I was a strong pill. I mean, she's not Wolverine or Deadpool.
But
It's
you
not
talking about like
she's,
Captain
indestructible.
Marvel. She can take hits from Thanos. She can
she
fly
can.
through huge spaceships.
Right? But didn't Wanda took away her power?
I
think she took away her
thought that
power.
was because like when she's lying there, like all the light stuff like just went
Right.
away.
I'm
I
pretty
was
sure
like-
Wanda took away her power,
and then dropped it on like her mortal self, I
Right.
guess.
so which that was brutal. And then next up we have the Professor X and Wanda, which I think should have been a longer scene. Should have been longer.
I agree.
I think they should have had more of a battle. And plus
Like
the
a
fact
standoff.
the way he died, I did not particularly like because honestly, it hurt me that he died anyway. Because I was like,
This
no,
is
we
the
may never
third
see him
time
again.
we see him. Yeah, I don't think Patrick Stewart will come back.
I don't, and that's sad.
But it should have been a standoff.
It
Though,
should have been.
in the mind.
They should have like talked and had a conversation. Professor X should have been like, Wanda Maximoff, this is not the way, or I think it'd been awesome. Like, of course he didn't have to be in this movie, but if he would have name dropped just Magneto and
Yeah.
been like, in this
Your
universe,
father
your
would've
would,
been-
be disappointed or something.
Yes,
That would've been
like,
cool.
I know.
I would have
would've
loved
been
that.
cool.
She's like, my father. He's like, Magneto. And I'm I would have screamed.
That would have been cool.
That would've been
yeah.
so cool.
I just got goosebumps when you saying that.
I know. I would have
Ooh.
loved that. And I would have
Got
loved them to
chilly.
talk instead of him trying to pull out the Wanda. And then next thing you know, the next Wanda comes in, breaks his neck in his own playing field. Like, this is literally Professor X's playground. Why did they do that?
I know. Like, is she truly more powerful in the mind than he is?
I don't think she's more powerful in the mind. I think she's more powerful than he is, but not in the mind. That's the
Yeah.
thing. He's the most powerful telepath ever. Like, why did she just like kill
and
him
she's
like that?
able to like show up behind him and snap his neck.
Exactly.
Like,
I didn't like
she
that.
just sat there facing the other way. There should have been some type of standoff, a conversation,
And it
maybe
would
like
have
a
been
mini
way
fight.
cooler.
But
It would have been way cooler if
Just
they
this-
went to his mind and they had the conversation. And yeah, I agree he should have died, but in a better way.
I guess they're trying to focus on just his good character, because instead of trying to fight her, he was trying to bring the other one
Right.
back in control, like trying to help her out rather
Right.
than address the problem
Yeah.
directly. I don't
Disappointing.
know.
Hard-
That scene was sad, but
Right.
what was your favorite death scene.
My favorite death scene?
Yeah.
Like on brutality or
No, just like the one that just like hit, man. You're like, wow, that was good.
like emotionally wise?
I guess. I don't know. Like, what would you say? What do you like best?
I like Bite Bolt's death
Bite
just because
Bolt's-
it was cool.
Yeah.
But the one that hit me the most was Professor X's.
Professor X.
I feel like. And then another one also, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about. Of course, we know Wanda's not dead, but when the rocks did fall her on the end after, saving the people and getting rid of the Darkhold, there was a moment in there where I did get emotional because I was like, there's no way. I didn't believe it. That's why I didn't get as emotional as I could have been. But if they would have showed the body and like her actually been dead, I probably would have cried, if I'm being honest, just because I love her character so much.
Yeah.
It would have hit. But she's not dead because Elizabeth Olsen really in an interview said, like, I just watched and she's like, I think there's more for her.
Yeah,
is
she
what
got like
said.
another 10 years.
And she's
probably.
got like she's got like a lot of contracts signed already. So, and plus, like, she's not dead. Fans love her too much. She can't be. So,
Facts. I will say, I think Reed Richards has hit me harder than any of the other ones.
yeah,
like for real, dude. Like watching just her unravel him.
I would have liked to see more of his powers, man.
Exactly. He tried to like punch her or something, right? Like we didn't get to see any stretchy.
We just see him like land and then try to punch. That's it.
It just like you could show they're trying to save on the CGI budget.
I would have loved to see it.
Not even a fight scene. She just grabs him and like unravels him, and then he's like, "No," and then he's like,
"Right." That was rather unfortunate.
That was tough, but man, I can't lie, dude. Watching Haley Atwell's character get cut in half with her own shield, that was cool.
That was cool.
And then like it hits the wall, and then like sees the blood dripping, bro.
That was dark.
That was cool.
Darth Maul vibes.
No, for real. But I really appreciated the whole fight scene was great, and I do like you said, she bested them all at their own games,
right.
and that just truly wanted to show how powerful she is. So,
all right, next up, that pretty much concludes our characters. So we're going to go into pros and cons for you guys and break down what we liked and then didn't like about the movie. So first off, pros. I'll hit us with the first pro. To me, the plot. I think the plot as a whole was good. I think it's a good plot, but a con that I haven't, I'm not going to say it yet, is what limits that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But the plot, like, the whole idea of this one girl who can multiverse hop coming into this world being chased, by a monster, and then Doctor Strange having to help her, and then Wanda coming in wanting to find her kids through that. That's a good plot. They just didn't do as good a job.
They didn't execute it well.
They didn't execute it well.
They had a good story for it, but they didn't execute.
And that's my first pro.
I can agree. I'd say probably my first pro would be the creativity of some of the magic fight scenes.
Yeah.
Very early on, we get to see Strange's powers, and when one of the cars is being thrown, like he summons a monster that eats cars.
Yeah.
Like that was cool. And then later with this fight with Wanda, like he summons a bunch of serpents. Like he uses a bunch of animal summons in this movie that are really cool. The CGI I didn't think necessarily super great, but the magic that they did do and the magic scenes they had were, I felt like, very creative,
right?
And they're just very like aesthetically pleasing. So
okay,
I enjoyed that.
I can agree. All right, another pro I have is the action. I thought the action for what it was super great, and the creativeness of the death scenes and the creativeness of Wanda's powers and Strange's powers. And the action that they had, pretty much all the action was around Wanda. It was all super, super great, and I loved that. And I think they did a really good job with that. That's action.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
To be honest, I didn't really notice this next pro until my second watch through. But I really appreciated the symbolism in this film, and what I mean specifically, I'm talking about the watch. In the beginning, as he's getting ready to go to Christine Palmer's wedding, we see him put on the watch. Obviously, it's still shattered. And that watch symbolizes him and Christine's relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It's still broken. It's not fully complete. And then at the very end, instead of using magic, he's using his frail human hands to replace it, right? To replace the screen after him. And then Earth 838, Christine Palmer, they get closure on their relationship. So that's really cool to see how something as small and as insignificant as a watch in the first movie plays like a big part in their relationship, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I can agree with that, and I think that was good symbolism. Very good. All right, next up, I have to say the darkness of this movie was a big pro for me because, of course, it showed how dark Marvel's willing to go, and I didn't think they'd ever go that dark, and they did. So I really love the darkness. And on top of that, I'm not a horror fan, but the horror elements of this movie worked really, really well.
Facts.
So the darkness plus the horror elements were really well and worked in the favor of this movie. And that's what most people really love about this movie. So I have it as a pro because it's just so cool.
Yeah, I actually had that as my very next pro was the horror elements. Specifically, the two scenes I'm talking about is number one, the scene where Wanda's trying to get in right through the water in Kamar-Taj to get America. And then two, the whole zombie hallway chase scene. Dude, I can't even lie. That first scene at Kamar-Taj went crazy.
That was creepy.
There's a lot of symbolism in this film with Sam Raimi's dang it, I just forgot the horror movies he used to make. I swear I knew them the other day. I've seen them, but there's a lot of symbolism, like the same way she's pulling the characters down, like just with their hands, like he's used in previous movies. So there's a lot of the same like horror elements in this movie as there are.
And there were a couple jump
movies.
scares. There was a couple moments I was like, I jumped.
I know, especially in the hallway. But dude, the whole scene of like her locking them in, trying to get through the reflections. You can even see like an eye in one moment. Like that scene truly actually might have been my favorite scene when she's trying to get in. And then second, the whole hallway chase scene. She's blasting through the door. She's like coming around like with a jump scare. Like that was very well executed. And it wasn't, I guess, like too scary, for like the typical Marvel fan, or like the fake Marvel fan. But it was like scary enough to feel like, like a little disturbing, like Sam Raimi style.
Right.
Okay. Which Wanda deserved. So
oh, yeah, for sure.
I loved it.
Another pro I have, I actually really did like the CGI and the VFX and the cinematography that they had all around.
Really?
I thought it was pretty well done. I mean, for a magic movie, it's going to be trippy. It's going to be crazy. They can't have everything perfect. But for what it was and the amount that they had, I think they did a pretty good job. So I have that pro.
I guess I just didn't like the third eye VFX. Okay. I thought that was kind of poor.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that.
But yeah. This is actually my last pro that I had for this film. And this was just a fan service that they use. Usually, like when there's fan service, it's like really obvious that they're doing it, and sometimes it can feel like really forced.
Yeah,
if you know what I'm saying. But this movie, it didn't with Patrick Stewart and John Krasinski.
Right,
it didn't at all. It felt natural for Stewart to be back in his role and introduce Krasinski in his new role.
Yeah,
and I'm excited to see where the future goes. But thank you finally for listening to us, and
we appreciate
it.
All right, my last pro is I just have to reiterate Wanda again as the villain, a great villain. She was great and one of the highlights of the movie for sure. I just had to reiterate her because I love her. All right.
Simp.
I am a simp. All right, cons. Cons of the movie. Nathan, you want to hit us with your first con?
Yes. All right, here's my biggest con with this movie and what kept me distracted the entire film was the terrible dialogue. I don't think I've heard a dialogue this bad since like Revenge of the Sith. It's worse than Revenge of the Sith. This might be like one of the worst dialogues I've ever heard. Just in the sense that everything was extremely cheesy and very predictable with what they're gonna say. Like when Doctor Strange shows up in his dead body, he's like, "It's gonna take more to kill me than killing me." Or in the beginning with Defender Strange, "Oh, I can't hold it any longer." Like all the action scenes, like they were just pulling from like the most like classic stereotypical lines. And I was constantly distracted. Like I found myself like laughing just at some of the dumb like dialogue like throughout the film, rather than at the jokes that were supposed to be funny.
Right.
But man, I hated the dialogue in this film.
Right. And I don't think this movie was that comedic, to be honest. Like, I don't think it was like that super funny.
It wasn't. And they tried to make it.
Yeah.
Like with some of the stuff.
I don't know. It's just, I don't think like all the dialogue was bad. I do agree some dialogue was cheesy and not as good. I do have that as a con as myself as some of the dialogue. But it didn't ultimately take away from me watching the movie.
I guess for me, it just like distracted like from the main plot. Right. Like just stuff they would say, I'd just like be caught on like, why would you say that in this moment?
Yeah.
And it would take me away from what was actually happening.
Right. Which I understand that. And this con here, my first con here is my biggest and the most number one con for me. The worst thing I think that they did in the movie, and that was the pacing. The pacing was bad. The
It was
plot was
terrible.
good, but the pacing was bad. And on top of the pacing, the length of the film, 2 hours and 6 minutes was not enough. It should have been 2:30, should have been 2:40.
I agree.
Should have been easily.
Which we know the original cut was 2:40
Right.
for Sam
It
Raimi.
was. It had
and
40 minutes on top
like,
of that.
He cut out like 35, 40
Right.
minutes.
And ultimately, to be honest, a lot of people are praising Sam Raimi for all this horror elements and all this stuff. Honestly, I think it's his fault. I really do. The pacing comes down to the direction.
No,
And
it does.
It's all the director, and I feel like Sam Raimi failed in that sense of the pacing of this movie.
I feel like he just failed in general.
I don't think he failed totally, because there was a lot of good stuff that came out of this movie and a lot that I appreciate. But the pacing it should have been a longer movie anyway. And I know he's not a big fan of producing long movies, but as a Marvel fan, I was expecting this movie to be 2:30, 2:40.
Yeah.
And when I saw 2:6, I was like, how are they going to be able to do this? And I was right. They didn't do it to the best of their ability.
Facts.
And the pacing was just, if they had better pacing, it would have been a great movie.
Yeah.
It would have been so good. A lot better. I mean, it's a good movie, but it would, instead of being good, it would have been amazing.
Yeah.
You know? And the
I
pacing
agree.
is the number one
I
compliment,
agree.
for sure.
Like you said, the first act starts off like really fast.
Right.
And then moves really fast through that whole fight scene, through the New York fight scene, through the
Right.
Kamar-Taj scene. The second act becomes
there
really
was no
slow.
time to breathe.
Just
really,
them
though.
walking around. And then the third act is really fast. Like bam, bam, bam.
Right.
Fight with evil Doctor Strange.
And that was my thing. I think the
Fight in
second
the
act.
Dark Temple.
I think the second act is the best act for being that slower vibe.
Mm.
I really do. And when it takes the time to slow down and back up a little bit, you get the time to breathe, and you're like, okay, this is what's happening. This is pretty enjoyable at this time. That's why I think the second act was the best, because they needed to really slow it down a little bit. They needed more development for some of these characters, and they needed just a better pacing in terms.
I agree. It was, like I said, it was very poor. Plot was good, pacing's bad, and they
Right.
don't fit well together.
I agree.
My next con is unnecessary humor in this film.
Right.
If you're talking about a multiverse film with this evil witch trying to kill a kid, I don't think this movie should be like that funny, right? I know Marvel, like they're known for like their one-liners, their jokes, but Wong had way too many like comedic lines. Like I feel like he was just in there like for comedic support.
Really?
Like example, when they're talking about dreams and like their versions of themselves in the multiverse, he's like, "What about the one where I'm like naked and I'm running around?" Like you wouldn't expect to hear that from a Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, I understand. I
I
think
don't
that
know.
was funny though. I don't think. I really don't. I have a hard time thinking of any moments where they try to force comedy. I can't think of like, except for like a couple lines. I don't think it was that comedic in that sense. I think it was pretty straightforward, to be
See,
honest.
I think it was forced. Like when Wanda's coming into Kamar-Taj and the two of them are staying there, and they crack a joke like right before she's about to invade like their temple. I don't know. Like it's just a movie they try to portray as heavy and darker, and I feel like some of the comedy like definitely didn't help with that.
Okay.
And I didn't really laugh at any of the jokes that were in the film, but I found myself laughing at like at the cheesiness of just the unnecessary. That's not even a word, but just at the dialogue and some of the
Right.
bad jokes. I don't know,
Okay.
but I just feel like it wasn't needed.
Okay. All right. My next con is the ending. I didn't particularly like the ending. And when I mean ending, not the third act, I mean the end scene when Doctor Strange just like falls down and the eye opens. That didn't make sense to me.
Yes,
I didn't like that. It just kind of ended so abruptly right there that I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so he got the third eye because he dreamed walked and used the dark world. Okay, that makes sense in a way, but it wasn't explained very well and wasn't shown very well, if that makes sense. And him just like collapsing and then opening the third eye, be like, yeah. And the end credit scene did
in
not
the end
help.
credit scene, he's like fine and he's accepted it now.
Right.
So what happened in between that time?
Exactly.
Are we gonna?
I don't know.
I know, like I said, I know the movie, is leading up to another movie, but the first end credit scene kind of negated what it built up to at the
I
end
agree.
of the film.
It just felt so weird, and I did not particularly like that scene at all. So I don't know why they did it. I feel like they left a lot of unanswered questions, which I can understand why they want to lead to another Doctor Strange movie is what they're seeming to be doing.
Yeah.
And personally, what I think they're doing is it sounds more like Doctor Strange 3, what they're doing and building up to is sounding like what the original plot was for this movie. And I'll talk about that here in a few minutes anyway.
Bet. Dude, I'm excited though. I had poor pacing, but you've already hit on it because that was huge. But in this one, I have just like the end credit scenes in general, and this is piggyback off of yours. Sam Raimi tries hard with the end of the movie to lead to the next movie, but it doesn't do well because of
No, it
the
doesn't.
end credit scene that comes
The end credits
right
are not that good.
after, right? With Dormammu's, was it like niece
Yeah.
or a daughter or
I'll
something?
talk about it here in a minute.
Like, it doesn't make sense. And then the second end credit scene just made me like,
It was a stupid one.
why
Back to
did
Homecoming vibes.
why'd I wait for 10 minutes to watch Bruce Campbell say, like, that's it? Like,
That's it.
like that was so dumb.
Yeah.
They completely ruined what they could have done, what they could have led to
Right.
with the end credit scene.
They really did.
So yeah,
I
I
think-
was pissed like when I saw
Right.
that. I really was.
I really do think, like, with the end credit scene, I feel like what would have been better is if, like, the last end credit scene, instead of being that stupid Bruce Campbell thing, I think what they should have done is shown, like, Earth, like, it should have, like, shown, like, New York City or somewhere, and then it said Earth 616 or something like that. And the next thing you know, we see, like, John Krasinski, like, walk out or something. That would have been
Yeah.
so cool.
And especially with him in the movie, that
Right.
would make perfect sense.
Perfect sense.
But like no hints at anything with the characters.
No.
Like,
Which I do think in the next 2 weeks, they
Why?
will confirm that John Krasinski will be the next
Yeah.
Mr. Fantastic. But
Oh,
it's just unfortunate.
I just hope that Raimi doesn't take the realm for the third movie. Like,
I know.
please don't, please,
I know.
Raimi, please don't.
I know. And another con, my last one is it could be a little bit cheesy at times. Like you said, we touched on that anyway, but just some other unfortunate things. Like the music fight scene, I thought was super cheesy, to be honest. I
Really?
thought it was cool in a sense, but like when they just kept going,
Yeah,
like it
and
was
then-
cool
and,
when it started. I thought that was dope, but when it kept going,
and
for
then
the
the
music,
one note at the end to
Yeah.
perfectly unbalance it.
right?
I thought it was a cool concept,
I agree.
but it was a little stretched out.
It's just a little cheesy to me, but that's my last con.
I have two more. This next con I feel like is pretty big. I already talked about how I didn't like the dialogue.
Right.
But I feel like this movie had way too much dialogue. Like MCU has always kind of like fed their fans like the plot, like they know where it's going, like they don't really like leave much
Right.
to guess. But literally everything that happens in this movie, they spend like 5 minutes explaining like everything. Like Raimi like wants you to know what's going on, and it's not that complicated of a film.
Right.
I feel like a teenager could easily figure this out, but I feel like this is way too much dialogue. I already said there's too much action. There's too much dialogue as well. They over explain and like oversimplify just everything. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we know what's going on. Don't explain. We've got to get to
Yeah,
that.
they wasted a lot of time that they could have used for other things.
Yeah.
and that's
We
unfortunate.
got to get to that book. That book can help us beat whatever.
Right.
It's just they
right,
stop talking. like for real.
right.
They had too much dialogue in this film.
Okay.
And then my last con, it just came down ultimately to the trailer. Yes, I was disappointed
Yeah, the
because
trailers.
the characters that we saw in the movie were the same ones we kind of knew were going to be
Exactly.
there because of the trailer.
Yeah, I completely agree. The trailers were good to get you hyped for the movie, but they gave way too much away.
think about it.
Not only with the cameos, they shouldn't have even showed the Illuminati being in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been huge. But they
Mhm.
showed the Illuminati, so thus we already assumed,
Right.
it's
I
going
feel like
be
the trailers
Professor X
also
and Reed Richards.
Right.
And then we get to see Professor X in the trailer.
exactly like the trailers. I feel like made it way too predictable. To be honest, of this movie, made this movie predictable because, like we said, we pretty much predicted this movie. Like way back when the trailer breakdown, we were talking about it. We were like, okay, so here's what's gonna happen. America Chavez is gonna come in. Wanda's gonna want her to get to her kids. We said that. We did say
I
that.
need to go back and listen to it because I can't remember.
We did say that. And the fact that it happened was cool, but at the same time, it's like, wow, this was too predictable. The
Yeah.
trailers made it way too
I
predictable.
completely agree. And there was no new characters.
Yeah.
In the sense that we knew what we were getting with the trailer. So nothing happened in the movie that you didn't see. We knew America Chavez, we knew Wanda, we knew Christine, we knew Wong, we
Right.
knew the Illuminati, and we knew Strange. Did we get any other characters? No, we didn't. And then in the movie about the multiverse of madness,
Yeah.
we should have gotten more variants. Yes, I'm saying I didn't have like super high expectations because I didn't want to get myself let down, but they spoiled everything, so
Right.
nothing was a huge surprise
It was.
besides John Krasinski,
Right. And
which we already said.
they really should not. Like Kevin Feige already said that the trailer showed too much, and they did. So hopefully they'll take that note in the future and be like, okay, we don't need to show near as much in the trailer.
yeah,
So
so
hopefully they'll take that. note.
that was my last con right there.
All right. So move on to the con. We got to talk about the end credits scene. We're not going to talk about the second one because it's worthless. We're going to talk about the first
Poor
one,
Bruce
the
Campbell.
first post credit scene, and that being okay. So we get Doctor Strange, and then we get Clea to show up, who, like we said, is the niece of Dormammu, and she comes out of the dark dimension, and she goes to Doctor Strange. She's like, "I need your help." And then Doctor Strange is like, okay, bet.
It's like,
opens his
whatever,
third
opens
eye.
third eye,
Like, and
which
then
he's-
jumps into the dark dimension with him.
So he's comfortable, obviously, with his third eye. How long do you think it's been from that scene and then the end of the movie?
Dude, I don't even know.
Probably not
even
even a
know.
year, maybe.
Right, not even a year. Which we know. Okay, so the original script with the original director for Multiverse
Scott
of Madness,
Derrickson,
Scott
right.
Derrickson, it was Clea was supposed to be in the movie, not just in credit scene. She's supposed to be in the movie along with a character named Voodoo. All right, Wanda was also supposed to be in it, but Nightmare was supposed to be the main villain. But Wanda was supposed to be kind of a villain, but she wasn't the main villain. The overshadowing villain that was kind of controlling and pulling the strings was going to be Nightmare.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a little bit more horror elements, I think.
I think we would have liked that better, in all honesty.
Right.
Like,
It still would have been Multiverse of Madness. It still would have had America Chavez. It still would have had some of the similar stuff. And they just didn't, I feel like that would have
give
been a
us
better
Scott Derrickson back.
movie. No, I think that would have been a better movie if I'm being honest. But instead it shows and leads into what I think will probably end up being the third movie, what they originally had planned for the second one.
Yeah.
And I think Nightmare will be the main villain of the third
Listen,
one.
it better be. And they
Right.
better not do some dumb crap, like change directors. Like that's what they did, right? It was going to
Right.
be Derrickson, like, right as they were filming, then they change it. Like,
Yeah.
that never bodes well for movies. Just
No.
look at the Justice League. Look at, any major
Exactly.
film. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
The plans don't line up. So I'm excited to see what they do in the third one, because I don't think it could be, honestly, probably like
Right.
worse than this one.
Right. And I will say, after that end credits, say a little bit more about Clea. She's similar to Doctor Strange. She has some of the similar powers. And after Doctor Strange dies, she does become the Sorcerer Supreme for a little while. But she's actually super cool. And I actually heard a rumor, which I was a little bit sad about, that Emma Watson auditioned for the role of her.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
They didn't
I
give it
heard
to
that.
Emma Watson.
I would have loved that.
What the actor? She's really big.
I don't know if she acted. I don't know if that was a fan casting or if they just said that like she thought about it or something.
What's her name? She's like really big.
I don't know. I forgot her name.
I'll
I
look it
did
up.
forget her name, but like she is, and she does become the next love interest for Doctor Strange, and they do get married in the comic book. So I think that they brought her in as the next love interest for him, which was cool and stuff. But the end credit scene itself was not that great, and it's super disappointing.
Yeah, Charlize Theron. Theron. I've
okay.
seen her in that stuff. But
Gotcha.
yeah, so what do you think she's bringing in Strange for to the dark dimension?
I don't know. Maybe it's to face the threat of Nightmare, or maybe it's something bigger in, because we did see the dark dimension, of course, before in Doctor Strange 1 when he fought Dormammu. But I don't know, and we'll see what happens with that. I just don't feel like they did a really good job with the end credit scene. It could have been better.
Yeah,
for me.
that should have been
personally.
the second end credit
Right.
scene,
And they
maybe.
did say that Doctor Strange will return, which was cool, but still, it could have been
Yeah,
better.
we knew that.
We knew that.
We knew that.
He's not dead, so we know that.
He ain't dead.
But another thing I want to bring up that I saw, like, a lot of people saying, and then, I agree with that, is the fact that, like, pre, phase 4, you had the first 3 phases of the MCU, the Infinity Saga, right?
Uh-huh.
This told a linear story. This told a linear story all the way leading up to Infinity War and Endgame, which was cool and great. And that way you could watch these movies and they'd all connect. Phase 4 is doing something different that they're trying to do, and they're trying to branch out where not every single thing connects, which is good and bad in the sense of it gives us more content, but bad in the sense it's kind of stopped with the whole linear storytelling. But my opinion is like, yeah, I miss the linear storytelling and they all connect, build up to one another, one-on-one. But this is becoming more like the comic books in Phase 4. It's
Facts.
becoming like, you have this story going on, like, for example, Falcon and Winter Soldier, you have that story of them. Then you have WandaVision plus Multiverse of Madness going on to one universal story and building up to the multiversal thing, and then other things going on around, everything else, which is really cool. And I think that's a cool concept, but in the coming years, we're going to be seeing either a steady incline or a steady decline because of this. And I feel like at this point, honestly, like Multiverse of Madness, I feel like was going to be such a high point. And I feel like after this, I'm afraid for the MCU, to be honest. I think it may start to go down and decline.
It's not just time for Warner Brothers to finally show up, do some good things now with the Discovery acquisition.
They have potential. So.
But no, I totally agree. I don't think it hurts them too much to have the separate projects, right? We see how well they've done it with DC. And like you said, it's comic accurate. We saw how good Moon Knight was.
Right.
And a large part of why these projects are so good when they're standalone is because they don't have to rely on anything. Right. It's completely what the director wants. So yes, I like linear. They can always pull these standalone projects in a linear like way. It's like through the multiverse because they can explain everything with it.
Right.
Oh, we're finding a big guy. We need your help. Oh, bring in Moon Knight. Oh, bring in Daredevil. What? But like I said, this was supposed to be like a high point.
Right.
And it wasn't.
It wasn't. It's super unfortunate. So we'll see what happens to that. All right, so real quick before we get to ranking them, we're gonna play a little game. That being, we're going to rank the 5 Illuminati members, not including Mordo, because who cares about him?
He's a bum. Is
we're
what
gonna-
he is. No one likes you, Mordo.
That's exactly right.
Go home.
So we're gonna do the 5 cameos that we had. We're gonna rate them from 5 to 1, from our favorite to, of course, or from our least favorite to favorite. And we're gonna do that. So feel free to play along if you'd like. If you'd like to do so, email us at heroesofthemoment@gmail.com.
Facts.
We would appreciate that.
Let
and you
us
can email
know.
us your list, what you think about the ranking, and how you would rank yours. Or you can DM us on Instagram at Heroes of the Moment. Or of course you can comment on our Doctor Strange post that's coming out soon enough.
Facts. Let
We'd
us
appreciate
know.
that.
You want to kick us off, Michael?
I can kick us off. I'll
All
kick us
right,
off.
go
So
ahead,
number
man. Go
5,
ahead.
I had my least favorite out of all these cameos was Captain Carter. So this is Captain Carter. The reason of that being is because I already knew she was going to be in it,
Yep.
for one thing.
Yeah, they
And another
spoiled it.
thing, I'm not a huge fan of the character in this movie. She seemed super arrogant. She said I could do this all day, which was stupid. She just got cut in half. She was lame. I didn't really enjoy her that much. She was better than What If for me. So she's number 5.
Okay. For number 5 for me, this might come as a surprise. Might just, but
Might just.
coming at number 5, last place, Captain Marvel.
What a shocker.
What a shot, right?
What a shocker.
Y'all probably think I liked her, right? Well, I don't. I thought she was terrible. I thought the costume design was terrible. I thought she was the cockiest out of all of them, and I'm glad she died. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Number 4, I have Captain Marvel. Also, I agree with that. She wasn't the best. She was super cocky and arrogant. You know, it didn't appeal to me that much. I don't know why they were in their mind when they were writing this cameos. Oh, we should get Captain Marvel. Oh, wait, no, it should be Maria Rambeau. I can already see a What If season 2 episode being what if Maria Rambeau got hit with the rays instead of Carol Danvers.
Yeah,
I can already see that happening.
It's coming for sure.
I can already see that happening. So unfortunate, but yes, number 4 is Captain Marvel.
Number 4 coming in, and I like all the characters from this point on. But Black Bolt. I love Black Bolt. Wish we could have gotten more. I'm excited to see him in the MCU.
Right.
But he was truly intimidating
Yeah.
with his powers.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, I also have Black Bolt for 3. I think he was cool. His powers were dope. He died super, super badly. Like, that was brutal.
Yeah, you don't want to go out like that.
You do not want to go out
You
like
do not
that.
wanna go out
I
like
think
that.
he was cool. I just put him as 3 because I don't know where we'll see him in the future, or if we will get to see him in the future. Depending on audience as well, they may just say, "Oh, Inhumans, bye. We don't need them."
they might.
They
like,
might just do
honestly.
that. I don't know. But
For real.
number 3, Black Bolt.
All right, number 3, we got Mommy Carter. Dude, I was so hyped. I didn't honestly want it spoiled in the trailer,
Right.
but Haley Atwell, like that's it. That's like actually why, like you said, she's cocky, she's arrogant, she steals Steve's line.
Mm-hmm.
To Haley Atwell.
Yeah. All right, number 2. Number 2, I have Professor Xavier. Number 2, the reason I have him as number 2 is because, of course, we were expecting him. We knew he was going to be in it. But also, I loved him. I think he was great. Of course, he had the yellow comic accurate chair, hover chair. He also, the X-Men anime music coming in. I loved that. The scene was cool when they, of course, were, in the mind, and all that was awesome. And I loved seeing Patrick Stewart back again. So, number 2.
Facts. I also have Professor X as number 2.
Right.
Like you said, it was super hyped to see him. Obviously, we already expected him.
Right.
In the trailer, he's one of the coolest Marvel characters, but he only sits at number 2 because of who's at number 1.
Right. And I think we will see Professor X again. I do, but I don't think it'll necessarily be
I don't
played
think
by
we-
Patrick Stewart, but I'm excited. to see him
He's
to
just
play.
old, man. I really
know.
don't think
I
he'll
know.
be doing too much. I think this
see.
is just a one-time thing for him.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, next up, number 1, obviously, Mr. Fantastic, played by John Krasinski. Just because he was the most surprising one, he was the best cameo out of the 5. He was super cool to see him, and I love him, and I really, really hope we see him again in Fantastic Four playing Mr. Fantastic in a full-on role and seeing more of him. But I love seeing him, and I was super hyped. for
Yeah,
that
dude,
one.
I echo that completely. He's my number 1. He was the only like real surprise I had in the
Right.
entire film. My
Right.
one moment of joy.
Exactly.
I really hope to see him act and direct the Fantastic Four
That would be
movies.
so cool.
And I think he has an awesome future ahead of him in the MCU.
I would really, really love that, and that's why, of course, he's number 1 for both of us.
Mm.
All right, ranking. I'll let you hit us off with your ranking of the movie out of 10.
So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep out decimals as I normally try to do.
Okay.
But I feel like just this movie, despite with all with the cameos,
Right.
with all the action, it just gets negatively overshadowed by the dialogue, the pacing, some of the cheesiness.
Correct.
I'm gonna go as far to say it's not even better than the first Doctor Strange.
Mm.
I think the first Doctor Strange was better than this film. But I'm giving this film out of 10, I'm giving it a 6.
Wow.
I'm giving it a 6.
That's
yeah.
pretty low for that.
I
was
truly
surprised at
do
that.
not want to watch it again for a while.
I didn't think it'd be that low, but I can understand why. I would, of course, I've put it a little bit higher. Just because of the facts, like, you know, like I said, I feel like Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange, is better movie, but I enjoyed this one more. So, and part of me, it has that bias because I wanted to love this movie so much going in.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to love it. Like, I really, going in, I had such a bias in mind. I was like, I'm going to love this movie. And walking out when I was disappointed, it kind of hurt a little bit because I was like, dang, I really, really wanted to love this movie.
Yes.
But then again, there is a lot in this movie that I do really enjoy. And there's some of my favorite scenes that they've ever done in the MCU in this movie, you know, along with Wanda and her powers and the, you know, the Illuminati fight and all this super stuff. So I think that's super, super cool and all that stuff. Of course, it's not as good as it could have been, which is unfortunate. And then, of course, I factor in the other MCU movies and what I've ranked them in the past. And I feel like, you know, it's weird because, you know, one MCU movie I gave like an 8. And of course, it's like, it's not an 8. And then one movie I gave it a 7.5. And I was like, but it's better than that movie.
Yeah.
But it's really weird.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Dude, I was going to guess that too. I was like, he's not going to give it an 8, but he's going to a little better than 7.
I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, you know, I thought about originally, like when I was halfway through the movie, I was like, this is more like an 8 than like a 10 when I was thinking about it. And then I was like, dang, it went lower.
Man,
I was like,
shucks.
Unfortunate. So I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I thought about giving it a 7, but I felt like that was too low considering what I've ranked past MCU projects. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, mostly because, of course, the cameos were great. Mr. Fantastic bumped it up at 0.5.
Dang,
and
you got power then.
But some of the cool stuff was in it. And some of my favorite scenes that I've ever seen. So I have to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yep.
I can respect
So that concludes my review of Doctor Strange.
Ooh. All right, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by giving us a review and a download. Heroes from the Moment is available on all major podcast platforms. So go ahead, check us out, and your support really does mean a lot.
We would definitely appreciate that.
Definitely
appreciate that.
As far as announcement wise in our schedule goes, there's nothing official, I believe, until Obi-Wan.
Yep.
So unless there's some dope trailers coming out, or surprise movie just drops out of nowhere, just count on Obi-Wan series breakdown.
We will. And we'll probably have some other filler episodes, maybe some, news-wise episodes in the coming weeks, because we don't want you guys going without content for like 3 weeks.
Facts.
So
we care for you guys.
We'll provide for you guys for some
stuff. Like I said, we do want to hear your feedback, as Michael said earlier. So if you ever just want to add something, you disagree with us, let us know. Like I said, DM us, email us, here'sonthemoment@gmail.com. We'll respond and maybe feature it in our next episode.
That would be amazing. And we just want to thank you for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.